Man, I feel like I've been living under a rock these past few days. I gotta check the news. Let's see. It looks like Roseanne Barr tweeted that a black former senior advisor for Obama looks like an ape, and Samantha Bee called Ivanka Trump a
As you probably know if you're watching this video, this past year ABC revived the show Roseanne, and they decided to depict the Connors as a Trump-supporting family. It was a huge hit, and Trump himself congratulated Roseanne on the success of the revival of the show. But then, true to form, Roseanne Barr got on Twitter for one of her classic, crazy, unhinged Twitter rants, and decided to compare a former senior advisor to Obama, an African-American woman, to an ape. She subsequently deleted the tweet and apologized, but ABC swiftly fired her and canceled the second season of Roseanne. Because many Trump-supporting conservatives adopted Roseanne as a kind of cultural or political mascot, tons of MAGA scorn was poured out on ABC and on mainstream networks more generally. In the minds of many Trump supporters, ABC and other mainstream networks treat Trump-hating pundits with a kind of liberal shield that protects them from all censure, all the while being willing to fire conservative-leaning pundits at the drop of a hat, or in this case, the tweet of a twit. Of course, tweeting racist insults is hardly a trivial thing, and personally, I'm inclined to think that if a liberal pundit did this, she'd get the axe as swiftly as a conservative pundit would. But this raises an interesting question. Should anti-black comments be treated more seriously than anti-Trump comments? Is hating blacks more serious than hatred of Trump, members of the Trump administration, or Trump supporters? And if not, is there a double standard at work here? Needless to say, this question lies squarely within the wheelhouse of this channel. As usual, in order to address this question properly, we need a handful of distinctions. First, we need to carefully distinguish between intense opposition to the actions or character of a person and hatred of that person. You can loathe the actions and character of a person, all the while not hating them in the relevant sense. That is, not failing to treat them with the respect that every person deserves, regardless of how bad they are. In fact, I think it's fair game to openly mock and slam someone for actions and character traits that you consider to be despicable, especially if that person is a public figure. In short, we can't confuse Trump criticism, even trenchant and very mean criticism, with Trump hate. But suppose we screen off mere Trump criticism. Is there any bona fide Trump hate that ABC or other mainstream networks are willing to tolerate that's on a par with leveling racist insults? As you might expect, I don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of all the ugly or nasty things left-wing pundits have said about Trump, his administration, or Trump supporters over the past couple of years. Luckily, literally as I was writing the script for this video, a perfect test case graced the airways of TBS.
Let me just say, one mother to another, do something about your dad's immigration practices, you feckless. He listens to you.
Bee has since apologized for this comment, and TBS followed suit. But Bee still has her job. Does this asymmetry reveal a double standard for liberals and conservatives when it comes to corporate responses to objectionable speech? There are at least two ways there can be a double standard here. The first is if both comments are equally objectionable, but only the conservative gets fired. The second is if a liberal doesn't get fired for saying something that a conservative would get fired for. Let's consider the second type of double standard first. Would a conservative female pundit be fired for using the C word to describe the daughter of a liberal president, say Chelsea Clinton? I say female pundit here because it's at least plausible that a female calling a fellow female the C word is different than a male calling the female C word. In other words, the C word could have some of the same social dynamics that the N word has. At least I'm granting that this is the case. While we can't know for sure, I think it's pretty plausible that a conservative female pundit would get the axe for using the C word to describe a liberal political figure. It would undoubtedly be treated as an example of internalized systemic misogyny that conservative women have towards themselves and other women. If you're inclined to doubt this, just imagine for a second that Laura Ingraham called Chelsea Clinton the C word. I doubt she would professionally survive such a stunt. I mean, she got tons of flack for saying that David Hogg, the gun control activist, was whining about not getting into college. If this is right, there is indeed a double standard here between liberals and conservatives. Now, what about the first kind of double standard? Is using the C word as bad as describing a black person as an ape, such that firing someone for doing one without firing someone for doing the other would be a double standard? I think this question is actually trickier. If it was a man that was using the C word to describe a woman, then I think the cases would be exactly parallel, at least insofar as blatant racism is as bad as blatant sexism. The C words intertwine with a history of dehumanizing and subjugating women. No less than calling black people apes is tied up with a similar kind of history for African Americans. But what if a female uses the C word to describe a fellow female? Is this like a black person using the N word to describe a fellow black person? Maybe. I don't have any firm convictions on the matter, but I'm inclined to think that it's somewhat less bad if a female says it. I will say, though, that I think the C word has clear sexist overtones, and this is regardless of who says it or why they say it. But these are deep waters, and I'm not prepared to floaty up for them, at least not in this video. I just want to point out that we won't have a double standard of the first kind unless a female calling another female the C word is as bad as a white person describing a black person as an ape. Well, there have been a ton of op-eds written about this issue, about whether there's hypocrisy here, whether there are double standards here. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. For more edgy topics and fair-minded analysis, consider subscribing to my channel. Until more madness needs clarifying, see ya!